Pokemon Pocket's third expansion titled Space Time Smackdown is confirmed to be launching on January 29th with two booster packs. It looks like it will be likely Gen 4 focused, with the pack cover Pokemon being Dialga and Palkia. Today's video is going to go ahead and dive on into the details of all of the cards we saw in the teaser release video and give you my thoughts on how they could fit into our upcoming metagame shift. If you want to see that teaser video in full, be sure to check out the link in the video description down below. Dialga EX is a 150 HP basic with 2 attacks. Metallic Turbo hits for 30 and attaches a whopping 2 metal energy from your energy zone to one of your bench Pokemon, and Heavy Impact cracks for 100 points of damage for 4 energy. Easy, obvious synergy out of the way first with Dialga. Obviously, this is going to work fantastic with Melmetal. It's a potent metal card that's been playable or close to it in our existing packs. And it's going to love to get accelerated. You put 2 energy on your Dialga, you crack for 60 over 2 turns while getting your Melmetal fully ready to go in the back. You switch into it with Dialga's convenient retreat to cost, discarding the energy we're using to Metallic Turbo or Leaf to save it for later. Dialga is also going to synergize with itself. You just have a second copy on your bench. You use your lead one to power up the back one, and then you switch in a full 150 HP Dialga to start cracking for 100 every turn. Past the obvious synergies, though, I think Dialga is a powerful and potentially scary Pokemon Pocket design for another reason, and that it takes the cautions we've seen with previous sets designs when it comes to energy acceleration and throws them to the wind. Specifically, Dialga's wording does not care about the type of Pokemon you're attaching these additional energies to. Things like Moltres, Misty, even Superior, and Gardevoir all only specifically power up Pokemon of their type. Dialga is the first card that's going to allow us to get extra energy on things like Mew EX, Tauros, Pidgeot EX, and others that only need colorless energy to get ramped up ahead of time. Overall, I would be absolutely floored if Dialga doesn't end up being a competitive staple in a metal archetype moving forward. Palkia EX is a 150 HP basic that has a slash attack dealing 30 for 1 energy, as well as Dimensional Storm that cracks for a whopping 150, as well as 20 to all your opponent's bench Pokemon, but it requires you to discard 3 water energy in order to do it. I think Palkia's a little bit less flashy than Dialga. It's not giving you some big energy acceleration, and its final attack is going to be kind of tough to pull off consistently. It'll need to be the finisher that you need to have because you're not going to be able to use it twice in a row. That being said, I think this card is almost assuredly going to be a metagame staple as well. Simply being able to deal 30 damage per turn starting on the first turn for 1 energy is a really solid rate when you attach it to this hefty HP pool. Palkia is going to be likely the new best lead in water Pokemon decks, where you attach your first energy to it and just get those chip shots in for 30 damage every turn to start, while you build up some type of monster in the back, something like a Gyarados or a Blastoise, to be able to finish the game. The second attack on this card, in my mind, is kind of a fail state for when your deck doesn't have anything else to do with its energy, or when you incredibly high roll with a Misty and eventually want to build it up to be your finishing blow for your last points in a match. I think one of the most apt comparisons I can give is Farfetch is a card that I personally have been a huge fan of because it deals 40 damage early on a fragile body, and Palkia is going to hit a lot of similar break points for you and likely have enough HP that you can retreat it out with something like Leaf or X Speed before it goes down, giving your opponent knockout points. Next up, we have Lucario, a 100 HP Stage 1 fighting Pokemon that has the Fighting Coach ability. Attacks from your fighting Pokemon do plus 20 damage to your opponent's active, and then it has Submarine Blow that cracks for 40. It's worth noting that the way this is templated, it also powers itself up. So at a minimum, this blow is going to be dealing 60 damage, but there's also a world where you assemble both of your Lucarios at once and you pump it all the way up to 80 for just 2 energy on a non-EX. I would like to give a little bit of a warning that while the rest of the cards in this video are official cards from the Pokemon release trailer, you're going to note that we're missing parts of them and the images aren't perfect quality like those first 3. That's because that's just the way way they flashed up on the video during the preview trailer that's linked in the video description down below. I'm still going to do my best to give you my educated and informed take on where they could fit in, but there's definitely going to be a little bit of extra guesswork in these since we don't know the entirety of all of these cards. We kick off with another EX Pokemon. Pachirisu has a Sparking Gadget attack for 2 lightning energy that deals 40 base damage, but it deals an additional 40 damage if your Pokemon has a tool attached to it. This, on the surface level, is a really solid attack if you can enable this extra condition consistently. Dealing 80 damage for 2 energy on a basic is a pretty incredible rate. If this card has 110 or 120 HP like Pikachu EX, I would expect it ends up being a metagame staple with the asterisk that we'll need enough Pokemon tools to make it consistent. What's a Pokemon tool, you ask? Well, here's an example from the paper game. Pokemon tools are kind of equipment, if you're familiar with that term for Magic the Gathering, where you put this item on your Pokemon and it stays on it until the Pokemon dies or the tool gets discarded by some other tech card that often exists in the game to interface with them, providing a static bonus or modifier to your card. We have our next evolution confirmed as well. Leafeon, the grass type, has 90 HP and has a 2 energy attack, Leafy Cyclone, that deals 90 damage. It does, however, have a drawback. During your next turn, this Pokemon can't, and I assume the word that is cut off here at the bottom of the screen is attack. 90 damage for 2 energy is an incredible rate. We see this on things like Starmie EX and Pikachu EX. That being said, not being able to attack the following turn is a pretty sizable drawback. One other piece of information that's cut off this card is what is its retreat cost. I would assume it's 1, but there is a world where it could potentially be 0 as well, since Leafeon is generally considered a quicker Pokemon, and a lot of the retreat costs in Pocket tend to be the speed of the Pokemon based. I think even if it costs 1, there's a chance where your deck's playing a bunch of copies of X Speed and Leaf, and this card ends up being pretty reasonable all the same. Another stage 1 is the Dark Pokemon Honkcrow, 100 HP with the attack Skill Dive that deals 50 damage to one of your opponents, and then I assume it's either bench Pokemon or Pokemon. The energy cost is cut off on this one as well, leaving a pretty big question mark. If this is a card that's templated like Lumineon and it deals 50 damage to a bench Pokemon specifically for 2 energy, I expect it'll be incredibly playable, just like Lumineon is a solid playable card, giving another color a way to appropriately attack bench Pokemon so you don't just have a terrible Gyarados matchup in your Dark decks would be a welcome addition. That being said, there's also a small chance this is templated like Seadra from our first set and takes 3 energy to deal 50 to anything, in which case its playability would leave quite a bit more to be desired. Next up, we have a full art Cynthia as a stunning preview. This supporter says during your turn, attacks used by your Garchomp or Togekiss do a whopping plus 50 damage. Obviously, how good or bad this card is going to depend on, first and foremost, how good Togekiss and Garchomp are, but then as a secondary to that as well, what do Togekiss's and Garchomp's attack breakpoints look like with and without 50 points of damage? If they're already hitting for large amounts that clear a lot of things in the metagame, Cynthia is not terribly useful. However, she's allowing you to jump something like Togekiss up to clearing a metagame staple like, say, Celebi in 1. She would be a really big deal potentially. Next up, we have Cresa, a whopping 110 HP basic Pokemon that has a 2 Psychic Energy attack, Moonlight Gain, that deals 50 while also healing itself for 20. I wouldn't be surprised if this card ends up being a new primary frontline for Psychic decks. Its attack is very serviceable in the amount of damage that it's dealing, and it has baked in additional sustain for itself. 110 HP is a pretty big breakpoint because it means that 90 damage attackers like Pikachu EX and Starmie EX don't clear it in 1, even with the assist from a copy of Giovanni. The big question mark about this card's power level is what is its retreat cost. If it's 2, I think this card is incredible. If it's 3, I think it's probably still playable, but it'll be more important that you actually put energy on it, so that way it's feasible to retreat it before it gets KO'd. It's also just a 1 knockout point Pokemon though, being a non-EX, so it's quite possible that it's fine to just let this card get knocked out in the games where you're not attacking with it and just building up your backline to start. Finally, I don't have anything strategic to say about it because we're still missing a lot of key information, but we do have basic spoilers for Turtwig, Chimchar, Piplup, and Gibble, so safe to assume that all of the stage 1s and 2s for these Pokemon will be coming in this expansion as well. I am super excited for the 140 cards that are going to be coming in this newest expansion. It's clear from just the small teaser that we already got that there are going to be some solid metagame shakeups and new powerful things to play with. If you enjoyed my analytically focused breakdown from this mini teaser, be sure to smash that like button. If you happen to be new here, make sure you subscribe to the channel as well. I'm producing strategy content around Pokemon Pocket here 7 days a week. If you're looking to stay one step ahead of the metagame and try and find that next breakout deck before everybody else does, this is one of the best places on this platform to do so. If you're not familiar with me, my name's Jeff Hoagland. I've been making card game content on the internet for over a decade, playing lots of different games like Magic the Gathering and others in a tournament setting at a high level for a long time, and Pokemon Pocket is my gaming addiction of the late that I've been absolutely loving. I appreciate you making it all the way through to the end, and I hope your next pack is an excellent one.